Hello, I'm live, inviting, come on, technology. Hello, I think Kelly is on her way. Hello, see, I see Jill and Sarah. We are waiting for Kelly to join us. I'm Anka Silagi. You probably know that. Hi, Kelly's here. Let's see. Kelly, can you join me? Let's try that again. Invite to join. Oh, there we, okay. Accept. Isn't that a good word? Accept. Unable to join. Hello, Andrea. We are waiting to do a live with Kelli Tager. Bear with us with a few technological. There,
Yay!
oh, there you are. Yay!
Yay! You're so technical. Okay. It wasn't ever, I accepted you like 6 times on my live, and it just kept going, oh, did you want to accept her? I'm like, yes, I did. Keep accepting. It's like, just accept her. I know I pushed the button. It was a whole thing. Anyway, hello.
Oh, we have a nice little crowd forming. Let's see, we have Lyle, we have Andrea, we have Sarah, we have Jill. Welcome. We are talking about audiobooks. Kelly, how do you pronounce the name?
Oh, it's okay.
Is it
I had to learn how to pronounce your name too, so it's only fair. Um, it's Kelli Tager.
Kelli Tager? Oh, Kelli Tager, the fabulous narrator of Dreams Under Glass
The
and
fabulous book, Dreams Under Glass. Well, let's just clarify. So, yeah.
and so
No,
many.
when they offered that one to me, I honestly, I jumped on your book like hardcore because I don't get to do a lot of literary fiction, and it's one of my happy places. So it was such a treat to be able to be able to do yours. So, and so such a relatable book too, which was wonderful. So, how did you come up with the idea?
Well, I, like Benny, had a day job as a paralegal in the lipstick building when the Bernie Madoff scandal exploded. But that's kind of where the biography ends, you know, unlike Benny, fortunately, I did not witness a shocking and surreal death in the workplace. Also, I'm not a diorama artist. But that setting was something I was like, I got to do something with that, and with that conflict of wanting to make art and just not having, you know, just like the grind getting in the way of making the art.
And the
Um,
and the conflict of keeping a stable paycheck and a reliable, work while you're trying to do all that. It's so relatable for all of us artists. I mean, definitely,
yeah,
definitely. I think I was telling you earlier, like I had a data entry job in my 20s that gave me, and they gave me the freedom to go to auditions and whatnot when I was doing the LA on camera and theater auditions and whatnot. But man, like it sucked my soul. And I mean, I remember the first day I had heart palpitations in the job, which should have been a good warning sign, but details. And I had all sorts of health stuff that blew up from being there. Like it was the worst health crisis I've ever had. So weirdly, quitting my job helped a lot. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I used to get migraines every single week.
Yes, migraines.
Yeah, yeah. Which I had fun describing in the book because I wasn't getting them so often anymore. Um,
Good.
Yay. Um, yeah, so when I was writing this book, I was a Jack Straw Fellow in Seattle, and that was a program that gives voice and performance training to authors. Um, And so there were like some cool tips that like I still remember, even though this was in 2015. Allison says, yes, creative people have to be creative. The real world is hard. I think, everyone benefits from trying to be creative.
Yeah.
Right.
Even if it's part of your work, I mean, even if you're in a 9 to 5 job, I mean, people have their outlets. They have their crocheting, things that I can't do, like all their crafts and whatnot. So, just so you know, Allison Bailey, who's on with us, she popped my narrator cherry, I like to say. She was my first author, and she basically drew me into the world of audiobooks. So, I completely give her props for that. So,
Yeah.
and
Um,
yeah.
I had gathered some questions in advance of our chat, and one of the questions for my student Sarah was, what was the first book you recorded?
It was The Dance by Allison Bailey. So
There.
there you go. And it was fun because I remember because I hadn't read she's a wonderful contemporary romance writer, and I hadn't read romance in a long time. So I remember going, okay, let me go read it. It'll be all like, ooh, okay, whatever. And then I read it and I was like, oh my God, this is so beautiful. Like I that's when I knew that I could do this for a living. Like I recorded that book on the floor of my closet because I wasn't even set up for any real long-term home recording at that point. So I recorded it on, thanks, man. Thank you. And so thanks, Allison. She said I was proud. So I recorded it like on the trunk in my closet, sitting down on the floor. My back was just like, I hate you so much right now. But I remember when I got you one big, powerful hospital scene in it. I won't spoil it because it's a great book, but I had chills like up and down my arms, and I went, I could do this. Yeah, this is my jam. This is absolutely my jam. And I had people trying to warn me off audiobooks on how what a slog they because it takes a certain personality to sit in a padded small room and talk to yourself in various voices all day. So it's a lot like writing, but we talk out loud. So, and I mean, I'm sure you guys do as well. But so it was. But once I read her book, I was like, "Yep, this is what I want to do." It's wonderful. So, and
Yeah,
it's been great, honestly. So,
that's so cool. Like, so some of the stuff that I learned in the fellowship was like, oh, you want to circle words you want to emphasize, or you want to picture every image in your mind's eye for a more vivid
mhm.
thing. Or like my favorite one was like kind of developing some performance notes. Like I knew when I wanted to say the word brains that I wanted to like channel a young Jack Nicholson or something like that. So like I don't know, like
Oh, neat.
things that you do to prepare for an audiobook.
Will you read it? It's amazing how many people are ask me that question. I'm like, yeah, no, we read the book ahead of time, and especially for books like yours that have very specific accents in them. So the New York one was no problem for me because I have a lot of New York relatives, and I channeled my own grandparents for Benny's parents in your book. I was like, that was my grandparents, and they're from Brooklyn as well, and but then you had Madeline, who was it Jamaican English, a light Jamaican English,
Guyanese, yeah, yeah, the British Caribbean accent, yeah.
the British Caribbean, which so I had to do some research on how to do that, and I asked another audiobook friend of mine who's from the Bahamas to make sure that I wasn't going to piss anybody off when I studied it. So because that one was definitely new in my accent canon, so I wanted to make sure it was a light one, but that I was being as true as I could be. So like you definitely clock for that stuff, and any characters that I mean, just like you thought about Jack Nicholson for the one character, like you make associations with people in your life or actors or whatnot with any characters to help kind of get a good solid sense to help fill in who they are in your mind, so it's easier to remember their voice and to give them more range and personality and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, like I remember for oh bother, what's his name? Not Baxter, not Simon, the other one.
Capra?
Capra. For Capra, I thought of Ralph Bellamy.
Okay. Yeah.
It just worked for me.
Yeah. Yeah, so you kind of map certain actors to certain characters, and that helps you kind of key into a voice and a feel and all of that.
Yeah, personality and energy, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, Capra was a Jewish Ralph Bellamy for me. So yeah.
And do you kind of think about all of like the sound of the book too, or like do you kind of just go character by character, or
I mean, there's definitely a tone when you have a certain genre,
oh yeah,
but it's more about the journey of the character. I mean, I think like when you're narrating a thriller book, my training is you don't narrate the genre, you narrate what's happening. Um, and so yeah, you're aware of what so you know how kind of how big your characters are going to be sometimes, just like with on camera with sitcom versus like CSI Miami, like you're going to have a very different style of acting. But usually as long as you're being true to the story and the true to the characters, the genre just kind of unfolds itself. So what I loved about your book was like the drudge of the daily life versus where she escapes in her artistic imagination. How did you, if you don't do sculpture and diorama, how did you come? Because this is so not my thing. How the heck did you come up with such cool diorama ideas? Because you couldn't have paid me to do that. No one would pay me to do
oh.
that.
I guess I should put a link to my book just in case anyone, while we're here, wants to is intrigued by that. But how did I come
Where
up with that? I'm
she gets her ideas too, like with the glass eye, that was freaking brilliant. I loved that part. So
so much fun coming up with the art, and then kind of like over time going back again and again to like kind of make things more vivid or more relevant to the story, right? Because sometimes it just feels like you're throwing spaghetti at the wall,
yeah, yeah.
and what she's doing, right? That is like the brainstorming process, but then you kind of have to think about like, okay, but what's going to work thematically too, or like what's going to advance the story. Yeah. So, I mean, I think some of it comes from her interest in Joseph Cornell, but also like a lot of the stuff she comes up with is not in that dreamy vein, right? And like that's her artist self kind of departing right from that
Hmm.
influence. Uh,
Hmm.
like wanting to take up more space, like wanting to take up the whole lipstick building, right? And not making this sweet little box.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
I loved how much you got the fear of success as well in there, not wanting to give her card to the woman and feeling awkward about it with the gallery person, and having like not being a physical artist, I still related so much as a performing artist to so many parts, like having the stuff like sitting by the desk, just sitting there mocking her and like how she didn't get around it. Like all that stuff is just, and I think we all have that part in us of there was just so many great little details that were so relatable to her and all the mixed emotions. I thought you really nailed that really nicely. So
So much.
thank
Yeah.
you. That was
I've been enjoying so the audiobook came out yesterday. I've been listening yesterday and today and just like so curious to hear your interpretations. Like I loved the way so there's a moment in the story where Benny has like thrown out all her artwork in the trash. She's like looking at it, and there's like this rubber octopus in there, and she imagines it saying this very depressed Eeyore voice, please Benny, don't forsake me. And I loved the way that you like brought up that sort of that self-pitying moment, and also likewise there was it was not her art, but you nailed the sound of thousands of roaches crawling on the walls. I thought
oh
that
my
was,
God.
like it really like got that sound in your voice, which
Oh,
was so cool.
because we used to have cockroaches at my old place, so like I was my engineer. I was working with my. I sometimes when I get really busy, I'll work with a wonderful remote engineer who helps me, and she'll proof along the way and all this stuff. And she actually has such a bug issue that she had to throw off her headphones at that point and be like, "I can't do this." Like it was great. Like she had to. She's like, "If you have pickups at that point, I'm really sorry because I could not listen because you had written it so vividly." Like so. I think that's the highest honor right there is that she had to throw off her headphones.
Um, yeah, that was one of Sarah's other questions. My student Sarah asked, is it, when you're recording, are you mostly by yourself? Are there other people involved?
It depends on the book. Usually you're by yourself in a padded room, talking to yourself in voices. I I've started using this one woman. I talk for a living, because she's wonderful. Not only as an engineer and spots proofing errors really fast, but she's also a wonderful director. So she needs to just keep doing. She's an untapped gem for me right now, and I'm keeping her all to me. Um, and her name's Jennifer, and she's wonderful, and she keeps me sane. But but if some places you do go in, and before, obviously pre-pandemic, that was the most common. You always went into the studio, and sometimes you'd have a director, you'd have at least an engineer. Now we're kind of it's moved a lot more, and there's certain companies that you will still have those things with. You could always go into the studio, and especially if you live in LA or New York, there's more studios available that they can access for you. But most of the time you're at home, and depending on the book, sometimes you will have a remote engineer as well at home, or you'll go in the studio. So it really just depends on the company, it depends on the budget, it depends on many, many things.
Makes
But
sense.
usually most of the books, unless you're working with certain companies all the time, you're going to be at home in a padded room by yourself. So
So doing IG Live is good to interact um, outside of the
people, people.
platforms. I also want to invite folks who are listening, if you want to put questions in the comments, you're welcome to put any questions about making audiobooks or Dreams Under Glass. I'm going to check. Um, oh, yeah. How many? I mean, I imagine it takes several days to do like a novel length book. Yeah.
I mean, yours was what, 8 hours, around 8 or 9, I would say. Maybe 7. It was a little shorter. Can't remember. It's all a blur. But it's about yeah, it depends on like obviously your schedule, and like if you're juggling small children and whatnot like that. Then your hours to record are going to be very different. Which is one of the reasons that I like this job, is because I can be there to pick up my kids after school, and make sure I'm there. And if I have other things planned that day, I'll get up really early to record instead. So, Allison asked, do you prefer going to studio or being by yourself? Oh, I always prefer going to the studio. I'm a studio slut. Um, it's just being away from all my home stuff, my emails, my phone, you bang it out in much faster time. You're much more focused, which is why one of the reasons I use Jen to remote engineer me, because it helps me really stay on task and in the book and in the moment and whatnot. So, yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any other books coming up? I know you did another book previously before Dreams Under Glass.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, so Daughters of the Air came out in 2017. No audiobook yet. And I wondered about that because I don't know if like a linear narrative is somehow like more suitable to audiobook. Like the other book, it's like there's two timelines. I don't know. I'm just theorizing. My next novel is about the medieval artist Hieronymus Bosch. It's set his
Oh, I remember
lifetime.
that. I remember Bosch. You mentioned him in Dreams Under Glass, right? Didn't you? Or was it another book?
Maybe.
Someone mentioned a book, Bosch, in a book I was narrating, and I learned about him. So
Oh,
there's
okay.
okay.
But
I want to say it was your book.
okay.
I might be wrong.
So it's set in his lifetime and also one day, 2016. And it's about the life and legacy of Hieronymus Bosch and the immortal witch who hates his guts. Um, so that's under submission. So fingers crossed on that.
Yeah.
And I'm finishing a collection of food essays.
Oh, fun.
So that's been fun. I have a long essay about marzipan coming out mid October, um, and then trying to finish a first draft of the fourth novel.
Now, are you pro or anti marzipan?
I am pro. I
Okay.
am. Yeah, I know there can be strong feelings. I've heard it called like compared to soap, for example, and I've had in my life, it took me a very long time to encounter that. But I did in a tea shop once have some marzipan cake that indeed tasted like soap. And now I understand. But fresh marzipan covered in dark chocolate, I mean,
Oh,
delicious.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I only have one memory of marzipan, and I've never had it since because of it. I remember in like fifth grade, my friend was over and we wanted to bake something, and the only thing we had the ingredients for was a marzipan recipe on the back of a powdered sugar box.
Mm.
And we decided to go crazy and make it purple with food coloring. And I don't know what we did. We were, 11, 10, whatever, and we did bad things, and it was not good, and it was purple, and yeah.
Well,
So one day I will have good
yeah,
marzipan.
yes. I think the freshness it can go like rancid really easily, I think.
Uh,
So I think when it's rancid, obviously, like the bitterness of the almonds is probably coming out, or like weird things can happen. But yeah, the woman who cuts my hair used to be a pastry chef, which feels like very appropriate to my life. I don't know. It all makes sense. And she explained that to me that that marzipan does not last.
got it.
Uh, um, yeah.
Well, I wanted to ask you too, did you, because I mean, obviously I based your characters on some of the actors and stuff. Did you have any real life inspirations for other characters in Dreams Under Glass?
Um, a lot of them are what you know, mashups of various people. That's kind of how you write what you know, but write something different. To you kind of like it's like I kind of think of it as like a glass mosaic where you take a lot of colored glass and you kind of put it together,
Mm-hmm.
make a new picture. Um, but yeah, so not based on any like celebrity. I mean, obviously Bernie Madoff makes a cameo appearance as Bernie
Yeah,
Madoff. But and Uma Thurman, I guess, on like early in the story. But
that's
um, yeah, I kind of taking the different qualities of people I've observed over the years, or like parts of me that go into different parts of the because if you when you do that, then you're breathing more life into a character and developing their complexity, right? Or I'll put this aspect of my whatever conflict in this character and this other aspect in another character, and hopefully develop compelling characters.
yeah.
um, Allison is asking, how do you come up with the title, Dreams Under Glass? So I think the title I submitted to my publisher was Dreambox, which I think is okay. And I'll admit that the publisher suggested Dreams Under Glass, and right away I was like, that's so much better. And publishers, you may know, like they get final say on titles. They'll
Heard
consult
that.
with the author, but I think titles are actually really hard. So
Yeah.
I that as long as they're suggesting something that like I think improves the story, which in this case I think it did, because it had so many layers, right? There's like the glass ceiling, there's the artwork beneath the glass, there's like trying to achieve something and it's just out of reach. um and I mean,
I agree, Allison.
yeah,
It's a great title.
thank
Yeah. And it's great because, I mean, honestly, when you finish the book, it makes a lot of sense. Like you absolutely, and because there are so many, there's a very specific glass element in there that's such a central and such a stunning visual that I really enjoyed it. I mean, there's just something about I mean, even the cover art and the title with the story that it just makes you go, ooh, so, which is just great.
and yeah, I want to do a shout out for the art.
It's
The cover
beautiful.
Nicole Dement is the artist, and she did the artwork for my first book too, Daughters of the Air. And when that book was coming out, my publisher asked me if I had any ideas, and I sent Nicole Dement's art right away, and they were like, you are the only author we've had who has a very specific idea that we agree with.
Hey.
Art. And then I didn't have specific ideas for this one, but as a surprise, they went out and they purchased art from her again. So the books look very nice
Oh,
together.
yeah. You've got a theme going now. I like it. It's good.
So yeah, thank you. Um, yeah. So do you have any projects that you're immersed in now that you're like excited to get back into the recording booth? Are
I'm
you allowed to talk about?
Yeah, what well, because it's posted already on all the audiobook sites, so I can talk about it. It's kind of reminds me of your story in some ways. It's literary fiction, but it's also magical realism, which yours I feel like has definitely a dash of. It's called All the Other Me, and it's about a woman who Googles herself for the first time and finds basically another version of herself. And it's between that and like kind of figure it's kind of about the paths that we could have taken and who we would have been for that if that had happened. And it's also a road trip with a sister who she does not have a strong relationship with. So it's them meeting these other interesting people. So
I love the sound of that. Yeah, I love both the magical realism, like the other me part, like that, how often do you think about it, you come across a doppelganger or like, someone's,
exactly.
oh, I just saw you, but it clearly wasn't you. But then also, yeah, sibling relationships, especially as an adult, I think like
Yes.
that's a
Yeah.
thing that I'm like, yes, I want to read that.
Yeah, it's really cool, and it has a lot of complex. Her relationship with her family is very complex, and there's definitely a lot of elements again to her that I can relate to. Not about the family, but she's someone who likes to compartmentalize. So not to therapy myself too much, but yeah, been known to do that a couple times. So yeah, definitely. But it's a survival skill first, but sometimes it winds up blowing up in your face. Absolutely. So yeah, so that one was wonderful, and I just got to play a psychopath for the first time, which was so fun. It was on my bucket list to do, and Marie Still wrote this fantastic book called My Darlings, which is a multicast with actually I had a couple friends in there as well, that was lovely because I had them specifically in my head while doing their characters. Um, and it's basically Dexter meets Desperate Housewives, so it's a very dark but darkly funny thriller about a PTA mom housewife who's also a serial killer. So, um,
Great. Yeah.
I mean, it's one of the things I love about this job is that pretty much every week you're doing different character. I mean, you're doing so many different characters when you're doing the story, but then you're also doing so many different genres. And one thing that's lovely about being a narrator is that the producers, production companies, and the producers are always asking you, what are your genres, what are your happy places, like what they want to know as much as they can about you as a human, so they will give you books that are the most fitting for you. Like I'm Jewish, which I'm sure is one reason that I was considered for your book, and for me it made it much more relatable because I was like, oh my god, that's my grandparents, Jesus Christ, like, and when are you going to get a real job, come on, don't you want to settle down, have some family, I'm like, oh yes, they so anything that just makes our job easier is great. So I mean, whether that's good writing, good story, our happy genre, something that we can very much relate to, all those elements are just make our job delightful. So, and when they're not there, it's a lot harder. I'll tell you that from experience as well. So,
That makes sense. I mean, to do a whole book, yeah, if you're not.
mhm.
But I definitely, I felt very connected to your performance parents in the book, and I appreciate knowing that like there was that connection there.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely,
Yeah.
definitely.
I'll also admit that I've never listened to an audiobook. until now.
That's okay.
And
I know most, especially writers, you're visual humans. I mean, I've gained an appreciation for audiobooks because I'm also a visual person. So audiobooks I used as study guides now, and I learn from them, but I have a harder time still. Not I don't always get lost in them like I will if I'm reading a story visually, because for me I'm more focused on the narrator and the performance. And so if I happen to get taken away by the story as well, awesome. That means they've done their job. And I have seen some fantastic. Seen, I've heard some fantastic performances by some of my colleagues, which has been really wonderful. So I've only
yeah.
dared listen to one of my own, or two.
Oh,
My daughter made me listen to one. So
I guess that was like one of my other questions that occurred to me was like people tend to not want to listen to recordings of themselves, but maybe as
no,
a narrator, it's
because
a
you're just
different.
looking at all the stuff that you did wrong. I
Oh,
mean, or that you missed, or just going. I mean, how much do you go back and read your own books at a leisurely enjoyment pace? Like, you could have been like, "Oh, why did I put a period there?" I mean, that's what we do as artists. It's like never completely finished for us, right? So, but I mean, I narrate children's books under a pseudonym for Kelly Garland. I do middle grade and children's books under because I do some of the spicier romance books as well, and I want to make sure to delineate if kids or parents are Googling me. So I have Kelly Garland does those books, and so I did one book for her there was a beautiful book I loved called The Nightmare House, about a young girl with anxiety who was starting off middle school. And I listened to it with my daughter while she was starting middle school. And it was a school that wasn't a good fit for her, that I was dropping her off at while I was listening to this book. And I would literally have to spend the whole car ride home unwinding, because listening to the anxiety in my voice would just like make me like I hated listening to it again. I was like, stop, why do you want to listen to this in the car? But my daughter was really into it, so I was like, okay, fine. So,
well, I'm writing that down because I mean, my son is he's gonna be 4, so he's not
he's got
yet,
some time.
but but yeah, he's already got. I think kids learn early the whole "I don't want to go to school"
Oh,
thing. So
oh yeah, 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 yeah. I mean,
yeah,
Shel Silverstein did poems about it,
yeah, yes, yeah,
but no, it's a beautiful book. I think Sarah Brown, I think, is the author. She's gonna kill me now if I did it wrong, if I said her name wrong. But she's also a elementary school teacher, so she really comes from a place of knowing what she's talking about, which is great. So
that's
yeah,
great. Yeah.
yeah. Well, how far are you into the next book then?
Um, the fourth novel, I've got an outline and character sketches, and I've written like 15,000 words, so pretty early. I mean, I would say I'm a very slow writer. So like Dreams Under Glass took me 10 years. My first book took me 15 years. So I started thinking about this story in 2019 and then only like started to try to write it this year. If that
Yeah, but I mean, if you're not, because you said you have a day job as well, right?
um I teach creative writing
Yeah,
and do manuscript consultations
and
and
you have small child.
small child
Yes.
coming back from pinball right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're doing a lot. So I don't, if you don't just get to the house on the top of the mountain where you're locked in, it's going to take you a while. So it sounds like you're doing pretty well. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Um,
I have I've dabbled with writing too, and I don't know how you guys find the capacity and the time for it, because it's exhausting. So, and I really have, for especially with narrating and acting, I can pop in and out of no problem. But for writing, like, you have to be in that headspace to do it. Like, if you're not in the headspace, it's really hard. So
yeah.
I preach to the choir here. So I'm sure.
Yeah. Hi. Yeah. So I've got a little guy here. I guess maybe we should wrap things up.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank
So,
you so much for spending time with me
oh, it was
and
my pleasure. My absolute pleasure. it's nice to be able to tell you to your face that what a wonderful book it was, and it was a pleasure to narrate. And good luck with everything. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the audiobook. If
I can't. Yeah, I'm on chapter 11, so I can't wait.
Okay,
Okay.
cool. Well, take care and have a great rest of your night. So,
Thank you. You too. Take care.
all right,
Bye.
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 Bye, guys.